brief overview for people that aren't familiar, in the box as opposed to out of the box. Out of the box is all this outboard gear, like all the rack mounts and everything. In the box is working essentially on your computer with all the digital stuff. So I'm curious, if you had a guess, how many typical hours would you have said you put into something like this?
To mixing the album,
Yeah, let's say this album. Yeah.
it's pretty different from song to song, especially because on this album the arrangements were pretty different. Something like the song Evergreen, where it's pretty much three vocals and a guitar. There's not a lot of prep work to get it to be in final shape, especially because that's not a song where they want it to sound tuned like a pop song. They want it to sound somewhat organic.
Yeah.
And they're singing it closely, so the tuning process is just like, well, let me take a pass, and if there's something that's like off in this direction or that direction, I'll give it a little nudge or whatever. But even with the timing, you want some flam on a song like that, so there wasn't like vocal line or really like nudging things 5 cents here and there. It was like leaving it alone, balancing it, picking out the reverb, be like automating and stuff. So something like that was maybe 2 or 3 hours till mix one. Whereas something like Over the River, where you have all the strings and you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of vocal layers and more sort of sound effecty type things, that takes a lot more, editing work to get it to where you feel like you can mix it, and then mix work that might take 3 or 4 times as long from top to bottom as something like Evergreen. So it's pretty song dependent.
Sure. Do you have to put on a different quote unquote hat when you're mixing, say, Pentatonix or an a cappella group that typically leans a cappella when you introduce an instrument, like say the guitar or the strings? Or do you kind of mix with that same kind of hat that you would if they were still doing like straight a cappella?
So with the top voices, it's more about the genre of music they're doing. With the bottom voices, that's where it gets really, really different. But if you're doing something and there's an actual kick drum in it, you're not gonna do the same thing to the beatbox as you would if the beatbox were dominating that space. So it does get pretty different. Although I will say most of the time when they're adding instruments, they're adding mid-range instruments. Like it's usually cello, it's usually guitar, and a lot of times Matt is singing below that instrument. So again, it's really song specific and case dependent.
Yeah. Is there any song in particular that you're especially proud of on this album? Stands out to you?
Oh, jeez. That's such a loaded question.
I hear that.
And another weird thing as a mixer and an engineer in general, there's the final product, and then there's your inside knowledge of what it started as and how it finished. And sometimes as an engineer, you're most proud of the ones where it started one way and ended a different way because of what you did, even though that's meaningless to an outside ear. So every now and then there's a song where you think, you know what, that song wasn't working, and then I did this thing and then it was working, and you're really proud of that. But you can't be like, oh, you know what, this song sucked until I did X, Y, and Z. So there are probably songs or moments that I'm more proud of, but not like things you really want to talk about.